If a school is going to teach your babies how to hate themselves, it must die and your baby must live. If schooling will teach you to hate your family and your beloved because they have a different way of being in the world, then schooling must die. Yes. So you can live.
For many of y'all, you have this high school experience where you then have people who have studied culturally relevant pedagogy and critical pedagogy and intentionally, plan lesson plans to support the whole child. And Tatiana, you're one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. When your writing, your analysis, I was blessed to be able to both be an advisor and an English teacher for you, which is so weird to say, right? As an African, I was your English teacher, right? But you weren't feeling the space though, right? And you had people who were you had teachers. Some teachers were Black. You had a lot of folk of color in your space, because in our field, that's what it's about. You get more representation. You get more. You study the grounding theories, and then you apply that. You make sure you go to the conferences. You wear the right T-shirts. You have the tattoos.
The curriculum fits with the community. Yeah. Is grounded from your experience.
You had all that. Mm-hmm. You had the teachers with the tattoos and the cool shirts. So why was it not transformative for you? Because according to our books, that was supposed to. You supposed to be flying after that.
Man, ain't that the truth? Okay. I feel like for me, in schools in general, I grew up with a really, my mama was abusive growing up, so I always been, on top of everything, so I never had to get disciplined. I don't like getting disciplined. I don't like people telling me what to do. So I just always made sure everything was good. And I feel like in schools, that kind of built an expectation of everybody of me, of who I truly wasn't. Because it was I'm coming into these classrooms, I'm doing so good, doing everything I need to do, but in reality, I hate being here. I don't want to be here. I don't care for what you're teaching me. I was in Spanish too with an A, and I still barely only know how to say hello, good morning, but the whole time I'm in intermediate Spanish, I'm doing all these things. It's just I feel like, for me, school, it was more I have to do these things. I have to look good on paper. But in reality, these are nothing. It's just nothing for me. As soon as high school was over with and it was my choice to go into a classroom, I didn't want to. It doesn't feel like a home. It doesn't feel like, oh yeah, this person is teaching. I know you got to teach your whole classroom, but I like my teacher to feel like they're teaching me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to feel like I'm just another person in your classroom. I want to feel like you're really trying to speak into me. And if you can't do it, then it's not that. And for me, colleges and everything, you're not, I wasn't getting spoken to. I was being told what to do. And it's my whole life I'm constantly being told what to do. Now that I'm at the age where I can make my own decisions, I just realized that wasn't for me. I'm still brilliant. I'm still smart. I still could do everything that anybody asked me to do, but I just choose not to do it in a classroom. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So now that you're in schools now, a lot of y'all are working with children, which is hilarious to me. And many of you I've tried to, dissuade, but you persisted. It's you work with kids.
Yeah.
How is that? How is that experience for you? And what do you feel like you're bringing in that space that you maybe didn't get?
Let me give y'all a better understanding of how I work. I am the person that people sends to challenge the system. I also challenge authority, not to challenge authority to overstep my boundary, but to challenge authority to understand with the understanding that what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And if you're going to use the system, let's fully use the system, because I could use the system against you to support this student that you're not providing this information to. Mm-hmm. I think that it is challenging because you're working in a system. It is challenging because when you're working in the system, there are things you need to abide by. There are things that you need to follow. And I have, in a way, I like to feel, fuck that. Excuse my language. I think that oftentimes in the system that I work in specifically, there are demographic of students that people don't want to deal with. Predominantly, I probably deal with tier 3, 4, and up, going into the courts, whether it's foster care, dealing with stuff outside of the academic setting. And I think that the more you understand that you have to attack and you have to understand and you have to advocate for the support, resources, or just things that are needed on a social emotional level with that student before I could even attack grades. And I think that once the system begins to know that, then they can begin to understand how to better serve those tier 3, 4 students, because at this point, it shouldn't be a reason why African American students are the fastest to transition out of schools, all because you don't want to deal with them, all because they have a behavior problem, all because they have an attendance problem. Why are you finding me because my student has an attendance problem? Are they even still doing that? But you don't know what's going on. And the only reason why I say that is because I was that student. I was a fighter. I work with the fighters. I was the person that wandered the hall. I work with the students that wandered the hall. When I was at Lincoln, they didn't know my mom pretty much been dying slowly my whole life until it was time for me to get expelled. They said, I got your file, and the people I was beefing with, they was like, I got your file. But every time they picked on me, I was like, bro, my mom's sick at home. I don't got time. Why y'all keep coming for me? So when I look at these students, they be so quick. Nah, I got to check this female. She got me bent. Why you got to go correct what they said? For what? It ain't going to change nothing. Did you get an A? Did you get a B? So I try to meet them where they're at. And I think that I have one specific student that just made me, goes back to that validation, okay? We all might need it a little bit.
There it is.
But it goes back to that validation because I have this one student, and I see her in me so much because she constantly hustling. She constantly trying to figure something out to whether she shows up with the right like presentation of herself. She wants this image. She wants to be cared for. And so you're not supposed to text your students after hours or whatever, but I feel like
Man.
when you gotta get stuff done, by all means, we all in. It's not like what you doing? Ha ha he he. Nah, academics. Did you get that English essay? What's that thesis looking like? Did you set up paragraph 1, 2, and 3? So when I got on this student line, I'm like, bro, look, check this out. You have ambition, you have hustle, and you're an African American young woman. At the end of the day, all of that can be used against you because you want to walk the hallways. All of that can be used against you because you don't want to put in the work. You have more than enough. So why? Zenaida, I don't want to hear about myself. Zenaida, I got enough going on. I don't need you to tell me about what I'm doing wrong. I need help. Yeah. All right, bet. So let's make it happen. And so for me, with her and the other students that I work with within that, it's like, y'all got to want it first. Until they want it, I can't do the work for you. Last year I was doing a lot of the work. Nah, I'm going to put you in position. But unless you're willing to take what's followed after that, I really can't do nothing for you. So now it's them coming to me. I think that I've made my presence to be known that I'm going to be challenged or I'm going to be challenging. But in a sense, what's the greater purpose of this student? Because disciplinary action ain't it. They're going to do it again. Kicking them out and transitioning out, who's following up? Did you make sure that this was working? Don't get it twisted. When students transfer out, yes, sometimes it is a great thing. But why does it take for them to move from that space for it to be a great thing? So now, okay, what's the alternative to suspension? The system that I'm in is actually starting to create spaces. Okay, this is an alternative to disciplinary action. When we have students that say, I'm trying to figure out when my next meal finna be, or I need clothes, cool. I got the resources now. So now we could start to attack that. But as I'm attacking these things and putting you in that position of the things and resources that you need, are you meeting me where I need you to meet me? Because now I put in the work for you. Now I need you to put in the work for you, and let's change them grades. My goal this year, unless God got another plan, my goal this year is every student that I work with, I want them to want for themselves to achieve above a 2.0. I'm trying to make history with every person I work with in all the categories: case management, BSU, BIS, girls group. If you are on my caseload and I work with you, our ultimate goal is to get above a 2.0, because what they're not going to do is say the work that Zenaida did not benefit this student. I got students that was just on my live just now. I'm glad I worked with you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have graduated. If it wasn't for Tiff, I wouldn't be here today. I promise y'all.
That's not true.
It's very much true.
But that's what we say. And you're sharing. It's powerful to hear you talk about your placement in this system and in the ways in which you are fighting it and fighting within it. It's really powerful to hear and to experience that. And I have a lot of gratitude for the children I've seen, like your interaction with folks, and you're incredibly relatable and passionate and powerful. So I'm like super grateful that folks have you, particularly given your experience. Ain't that a trip when you see yourself?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think my experience has been a little different in that in each cohort I see a previous student. And my lessons from that, my failure from that one informs how I saw Jada, right? So I knew what not to do when I met Tatiana. I knew exactly, right? And we had a much smoother relationship because I knew what not to do. And it's like, not only did these people, it was freaky. Not only did they act alike, they looked. There was a similar look. That was incredibly spiritual for me. And I think the thing that when I'm hearing from you that scares me a little bit is I hear me in you.
I heard it too. I heard it too.
But I hear me in 2012 in you. And I think about Jordan, and that's why he just woke up, because I had the tattoos, I had the content, we did the trips, and Jordan was the student who leaned into it initially and then was the student at the end who said, this is also whack. You are also whack. Which, as a Leo, me,
you a Leo,
who believed that was the currency, because so many people, I wouldn't be here without you. I wouldn't, right? So that built up my persona. Then you have someone who says, and Jordan and I have such a complicated relationship because we had beef after high school. where and it's okay for me to share some.
No, go
we had this conversation one day, and he says to me, he said, you're my abuser.
I did say that.
And it was an incredibly challenging statement to hold, because part of it was there were some things that Jordan was doing that were harmful to me. So that it was harder for me to receive that. One, because of the package it came in, because people don't talk to me like that. And two, because I had myself been harmed. But it didn't negate. And even my colleagues were like, absolutely not. There is no way. Because I was with some of them on the trip when he said this to me. There's no way, Tiff, you care about these kids. You put in time and energy. And I think maybe months after, I sent you a voice memo, right, apologizing and being accountable and having to sit through that, several therapy sessions later about this kid that gets on my nerves, that I love very deeply. Can you share a little bit about what you meant by that?
I think that, I also think that I've grown since that conversation. I probably, if having that conversation, I probably would have said it a little differently. But I think in the moment what I meant was like, there was a piece of, I really believed it. Like, in the sense where I believed everything that I was taught. I believed I believed all the action that we were doing. There were times where like I would come in and I'd be like, Tiff, we're not doing enough. Tiff, we're not doing enough. The people, black people still dying. We not in the streets. I ain't seen you in a protest yet, Tiff. What are we doing? You know what I mean? Like that was, and, you know, I mean, in high school, that was the epitome of what resistance kind of looked like for me. And so, but like I think,
Yes.
I believed so heavily in not only what we were taught, but also like in the things that were said in passing. And, you know, like as I'm very playful, you know what I mean? And like I'm also someone who will, like now that I've had students, I will play with my students. And I realized that there are moments where I had a hard time distinguishing what was a joke and what was not. You know what I mean? And so like what I took to heart about this is such an important time in forming my identity. You know what I mean? I think that like there were things that I heard about myself that I knew that at the time, now that looking back, I'm like, that wasn't serious. That I couldn't distinguish. I couldn't take it to heart because you were such a big role in my life. You know what I mean? Where it was like, okay, so if Tiff thinks this about me, this must be true. And I don't think that, you know, when you take on, and like I said, I spoke to you about like, me and my dad were in fist fights throughout high school. Tiff is the only one. Most of my teachers knew that, and if they didn't, they're lying because it was. I was talking to Sil about it. I was talking to people about it. Tiff is the only teacher that said, "No, I'm gonna step up. You guys deal with your family," because a lot of me and my dad's disagreements came from, you know, school.
Yes.
And how I was at school.
Yes.
And so Tiff stepped up and said, like, I can hold that for you. I'll do school. And in that, from that moment, it was like, okay, so Tiff is my family. You know, Tiff is a family member. And so I think that, like, there were times where I put Tiff on such a high pedestal where I was like, if Tiff's wrong, I'm wrong. I must be wrong about Tiff being wrong. Mm. Right? And, like, in that feels good. You know, as an adult, I'm realizing like when you have someone who just who not one as a student, especially the type of student that I was, when you have me like that, you're like, I'm not really trying to disrupt too much of this because this is the guy who wanders out of every class. This is the guy who not only wanders out of every class, but now that I'm a teacher, I know how scary this is, will tell you and dissect your curriculum as it's being taught and say, so this isn't going to work for the day or the week. You need to figure something else out. And they kick me out and they continue to teach that lesson. But could you imagine, like, and full of and accurately describing what's wrong with the curriculum.
Yes. Because
my mom is a teacher. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like accurately telling you, so this is racist for this reason and that reason and that reason. You know, and not having to balance those two is a lot. But I think that for me, it just looked like me doing making these, you know, accurate kind of reads on what's happening in my abuse and what's happening in this space that I really hate to be in. Mm-hmm. And Tiff, who was teaching me all the things that he's teaching me about the analysis that I'm having around these teachers, and then going to Tiff with that analysis and her being like, I hear you, but you got to get through it. You got to get out of there. You can't, and you got to do this work, even if you disagree with it. You have to do it. It has to get done because it's a grade. And that is where the abuse lied. You know what I mean? Where it's like, that's what felt abusive for me at that time, was like, you're teaching me these things. We're talking about revolution. We're talking about breaking down this system. And when I'm sitting here and I'm ready and I'm going, I want to break it down. I'll deal with the consequences later. Fuck this. It's like, no, we can't do that. And part of it is like, one, I'm not going to convince a 16-year-old to drop out of high school. It seems kind of crazy, right? Also, we need you to get to college, or at least have the option. And I always knew I didn't want to go to college. There was a point, by my senior year, I said I wanted to be out of high school. I was ready to leave. I said I would do independent school. I tried to do everything, which I wasn't probably going to do well, because if you leave me with a bunch of schoolwork, it's not getting done. But I think that the abusive part of it was like I was doing everything. I started smoking weed in high school to escape the fact that like I'm in this horrible place. Also, weed is fun, but like
he's not lying, like, ladies and gentlemen. He's telling the truth.
Can be. Yeah, but at the time I for sure was like trying to escape and like trying to get, and just all of that, like as a 15, 16-year-old, having Tiff know everything about my experience, you know what I mean? But also being within this very limiting system that says that's really Tiff wasn't even supposed to be texting me. So let alone taking on this part of my family. It felt like there was like all sides were closing in on me at all times.
Mm-hmm. And there's a part of it that like the two are incompatible, and you were calling out how incompatible it is. Mm-hmm. If you love me and you believe in me, then why do you have me in prison? Mm-hmm. And why? And from my angle, and I think that's this area that's challenging for teachers, is most of these pedagogical strategies or structures, if they are actually done, you can't do school.
Right.
If it's truly about
That's right.
a child learning how powerful and important they are, they're not going to be confined. And so what was interesting about Jordan is Jordan was both interested, in terms of his development, right? Your development, you're supposed to be pushing boundaries, but you also had all these theories in your ear, right? So you had the language with it, and then the packaging for me was abrasive. And the reason why it was abrasive that I think we need to talk about, which is what scares me with you. And I told you this very recently, right? When we had our second come to Jesus moment. He and I have had several sit downs. Was that I was tired, which is why I worry about you.
Oh.
And I was
Burnout is
resentful.
real.
I was resentful, actually. And a lot of what comes out after year 16, year 17, is what you're telling me, your freedom to talk to an adult the way that you did, your freedom to challenge, I did not get that. So it was fatigue that gave way to an immense amount of resentment, and, which this is for a lot of educators, I did not take care of myself. I did not create boundaries for my well-being. I was with this one, Jordan, sometimes till 11 p.m. Getting the work done. Let's be real. And most of y'all around here, I've been with you, right, late. This is weekends. And what people don't trip. How old were you when I first started teaching you, Z? 16?
I had to be in 10th, 11th grade.
So I was 21.
Craziness.
So that's where it starts, or 22. No break.
Oh, yeah.
No, I didn't get to be a reckless adult.
No.
Or young adult.
Yeah.
Like y'all get to the night y'all. No, I was lesson planning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was at Upward Bound with y'all in the dorms. And so when I get to this, after all of that, and you tell me I was your abuser, which has truth in it, I don't have the capacity to hold it. I don't have it.
Yeah.
So you're the problem. Even though in theory, I know that neither of us are the issue. I know that this structure that we are in, that we believe that's the only way that we can interact with children, that's right, it's the most convenient. But we've come to believe that's the only way we can care on children. When we meet there for inspiration, then we also have to follow their rules. Right? And that becomes, I think, the source of a lot of tension. Is yes, I can love you, or actually, I don't know if I can love you there. Because love is supposed to be limitless. Love is supposed to be robust. And it's hard to do that with these really confining rules. I think with Tati's group and Angus's group, and Jordan came back and then he was resentful.
Yeah.
Because he was seeing the type of love and attention that he needed that y'all got. The like, okay, we're having a restorative circle. The bell just rung. But what will we do? We move when we move. And if the healing is right here, then I'm going to talk to y'all teachers later, right? All of that, the investment in y'all was undoing the entire structure. To actually love on and to be present, what y'all got, there were each iteration of this, there were more adults mad at me, right? There were more people frustrated because when we went to New Zealand and when we took votes to New Zealand, in my head, that is game changer.
Yeah.
What I got from colleagues, our entire structure was challenged and undone. You took teachers with you, right? And that's literally what happens. That's the relationship between the two. Yeah. But I want to stir this up a tiny bit more, if it can even be more complicated. When y'all introduce yourselves or you talked about yourselves, most of y'all talked about yourselves in relationship to what level of school you're at.
I noticed that. I wanted to say it, but I said it in my head. But
Most of y'all did.
You still get points.
all right, thank you.
And let's be real, there is both literal eyes on you and judgment about it, and then there are the invisible forces about who you are in relationship. Who you are is, and Z, you were talking about this before, right? You introduced me as Dr. Tiffani Johnson. I was like, I was nauseous.
I'm sorry.
And no, you don't need to be sorry, but that's, for me, we have been able to heal, Kenjis and I, where that introduction, that works against us and what we believe we're doing. But for many of y'all where you are right now, let's be real about the pressure that's there. And I'm going to alley-oop it to Angus, right? You had this experience going into this 4-year university. You made a really hard decision for your health and your well-being to remove yourself. And now when you introduce yourself, you're like, I'm at City and I'm at Davis and I'm going back. Like it was interesting.
Military, maybe.
Yeah, and military, right? So talk to us about the why.
Yeah, I mean, while we were going through our intros, I was reflecting on, like, who am I? What am I doing? Like, what like, who I am? What's my identity? And, like, I was just reflecting on a timeline, well, on like, the short time I had. I mean, me personally, all I have going on right now is just school. The more I think about it, I don't, like, do anything else, essentially. It's just school, the gym, and at work, and I repeat that. So at this point in my life, this is what I'm doing for now. So I guess that's what I said. But also, I have that pressure behind my parents and just my entire upbringing to be doing something or, like, achieving higher education, a job or something. So I guess I put a lot of stress on that because, first off, I come from a Chinese family and we value education a lot. So when I made that decision to not go back to Davis, I created a huge rift between my family. And it was pretty hard because they couldn't understand what I was going through because they assumed that if the problem isn't directly affecting me, I shouldn't be, like, affected. Some context. My mom is basically, she's terminal stage 4 cancer in the liver, and she's been like that since 2020. So when I went to Davis, she ended up getting her first surgery, and it was at Kaiser. So I don't know about if you hear about Kaiser, but Kaiser fucking sucks. But basically, yeah, then the nurses left their arms hanging off the bed. So for 16 hours, they're just slumped over. So all the nerves cut off. So by the time her surgery was over, she woke up with 2 paralyzed arms. And this is right before I started going to college. And despite that, my dad was still, so my dad's, he was active duty at that time, so he was working. So my mom basically had to make a tough decision to, like, Angus, I need you to come back every week to, like, take care of me. And but she was also implementing the fact that, like, oh, I'm okay, I want you to focus on school. I was like, Mom, you can't tell me to focus on school when you're like this, Mom. Yeah. And, like, my dad's also very busy. He asked me too personally to, like, help the family. And I personally value my family more than the education, despite what my family thinks. So my first semester, it was bad. I was indulging in, like, a bunch of things to distract myself, drugs, people, parties, just everything. and I made the ultimate decision to not continue this because I'm not ready. So, but that kind of messes up my identity because I grew up it's all about status. What I'm doing, what I have done, it's just what my parents place value on. Like, oh, you need to go to school, you need to have a good job, you need to be do something well for yourself. And like when I told them that I'm leaving Davis, they were very upset, and they're just, I can't blame them, but they're slandering me. They're calling me very, very abusive things. And I tried to be honest with them, explain to them how it was going on, but a lot of Asian cultures, they don't believe in mental health. So they didn't kind of understand where I was coming from. They just thought that I was being a pussy, essentially. I was just giving excuses and like I can't keep up to their expectations. And I understand where they're coming from because my mom and dad, they came from nothing. They came from villages in China, and they immigrated here when they were 18. They didn't know any English, and they sacrificed a lot to bring me to where I'm at. My dad put 20 years into the service. He wasn't there like in like the beginning of my life because he was just touring, and my mom had to work full time to take care of me and my brother. So that also places more stress on me, I guess, to like get a degree to like
Build
acquire
some
status, acquire some success in some sense. But to their eyes, because I about the validation, I want the validation because it's my mom and dad. And I guess one thing that makes me say that I said Davis specifically, even though like I don't even feel like I want to go back. So I'm like, fuck that school. But like I do want to transfer to a school because my mom basically promised me that like she's holding out until I get a degree. And like as much as how like that sounds like a movie, like, oh, I gotta do this for my mom, that places a lot of I won't say trauma, but like
that's stress.
But stress. Like
Yeah.
stresses
It's
me the
something
hell
you gotta
out.
carry.
Yeah, because now I gotta do this for my mom, and like I do care about her. I do love her. But mom, like you're putting me this stress because I don't know what I want to do for like my entire life. Like I can get you this degree, but like it's not helping me at all. I don't know how to deal with you not gonna be there soon. Like mom, I'd rather talk about that. Like I don't want to lose you and stuff like that. Like not just once you get the degree, Angus. Like once you and Cody get the degree, I'll be content with my life. I can pass on. But I'm like, mom, you're forgetting about me and Cody and like how we feel about you, or like and about life in general. Like,
and it's like projecting a mental timeline on you.
Yeah,
too,
and then it's just places more stress because now I'm just constantly thinking about it. Like, when is my mom gonna pass away? Am I gonna graduate in time for her to see me? It just it just makes me rush my decision essentially. So so that's why I was like, yeah, I'm going to these colleges because it's a way of me coping with like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, despite like not knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So,
and even though that's motivational in a big way too, it's like how you were just kind of saying right now, like, yeah, it's kind of not dangerous, but it's like kind of detrimental to your health, like mental health.
Yeah, like I told her like, okay, I get it. Like I know you want us to be like well off before you pass on, so you can be content. But at the same time, like you're placing like a lot of stress on like me and Cody mentally, cause like I don't know. It's like I can't explain it. Cause it's like, I mean, you love your mom. Like you want her last wish to be fulfilled before.
Exactly.
Cause like, what if you don't finish it? And
exactly.
You feel with that regret. So it's
I
like
used to feel like that too, bro. To keep it
I
short.
explain it like you can't go anywhere with that situation. You just gotta like deal with it essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The reason I said that was just because I just wanted to make it a point, like if like people could see like that's a good thing. Like she has great intention for you too. But I also wanted to point it out just because like I love that, and I'm not even trying to say anything that takes away from that, but I'm saying I just wanted to point out how that could be bad for your health too. Like it's like an unintentional stress. Like she's doing something good for you. Like she in theory, right? Yeah. Like she wants you to do the best, which is the best, right? Like, but I just wanted to call it out to see if you felt that way too.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, I
if you felt the unintentional stress behind it.
Yeah,
That's
I
all.
definitely feel it. But
It's the pressure.
yeah, I guess the validation of my parents and just how I want to be viewed as, I guess, to other people. I want to just do it, basically. Just
So
tell
yeah,
them.
which you should. I'm not saying anything against that. I just wanted to see if you felt that. But by all means, go do
Yeah.
that shit, bro.
And so my
You
question
need to.
is, if you don't mind me asking, how do you feel like, and this is obviously probably the essential question right now, but do you envision a way where you get the best of both worlds? Where you are making your mom proud, but you also are doing what fulfills you?
That is a really good question because ever since I left Davis, that's been like my question of like my life right now.
Sidebar question real quick. When you left Davis, did that feel fulfilling?
Yeah.
Not just on how, not the opinions, but just how you felt. Did it feel fulfilling
Yeah.
to leave?
For sidebar question, yeah. As soon as I left, the weight on my shoulders just disappeared. Like I felt like I had no more responsibilities to that school. Like I didn't like have to like wake up at like fucking 8 a.m. to go to these like GEs, these classes that I don't even like. Essentially, it just felt like I'm finally have something to control my life.
You got the freedom
I
to
finally
move.
made a choice on my own. Yeah, and then backing off of your original question, can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, it was, do you feel like you can get the best of both worlds? Like, do you feel like you can fulfill what your mom wants, but also fulfill yourself?
If I'm being completely honest, no. I guess, well, throughout my entire relationship with my mom in general, she was a very strict Asian mom, a typical tiger mom. But after going through KIP and like countless arguments, disagreements, really bad. And I'd say I can't really decide because if I choose to do what I want to do, I for surely know my mom and dad are not going to be okay with it. Like, I just know straight off the
Well, what is
That's
that
tough.
specifically?
Yeah.
What is it that you want to do specifically?
Yeah,
As of right now, I just want to live with I just want to spend time with my mom before she goes.
Right.
But I understand that this is my 20s, and she understands like this is where I need to start building my my life, figuring out who I am, essentially. But then she also it's weird. She's like, go out, do your thing, but at the same time she's like, oh, but come home, like I miss you. I'm like, bro, what do you mean? Like you just told me to go out. And I'm like out doing my thing, and you call me, hey, you come back this weekend? I'm like, no, mom, I can't. And she's like, oh, we're throwing a barbecue. I'm like, you just told me to go out and like get my stuff. I'm like, so it's just a balance, but I can't really find a balance as much as I really want to, because what I want to do is that I'm really into motorcycles, and I really want to start riding, and I feel like that's my own type of therapy. But speaking on the topic of like death, my mom is like very close to dying, and like we're talking about motorcycles. That's a huge.
Did she mention that to
huge
you?
rate of being killed? She was like, I don't want you to die.
Yeah,
I was like,
I feel you.
I know, but it's something I really enjoy doing. I really want to do, and like I also want to take time with school. I don't want to rush school as much as like she wants me to graduate immediately. Like, and I recently told her that I'm taking off another year at City to do more classes, see what I like. But that's basically postponing another year off of my returning to Davis or another school. And that kind of disappointed her more, because she's like, why you just do something? I was like, I don't want to rush it, but she doesn't understand because she's on a time limit,
Right.
which I can never understand because I don't have stage 4 like that. So
Right. Exactly.
I don't know. It's just very difficult to like. I know what I want to do, but I don't. It's selfish. Bottom line, like.
Is it selfish for who?
Yeah.
That's what you gotta ask yourself.
Yeah.
Is it selfish for who? Because and this is somebody that went through it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this still on topic or not, but this is somebody that went through
topic.
it. And so you have to ask yourself, although mom is mom, And we at a point where I just had to go through this with my dad. All praise be to the Most High. He's still here today. You get what I'm saying? And this was weeks ago. You have to ask yourself, is it selfish for you or is it selfish for mom? Because if mom was to ask herself, is it selfish for me to want something for my son that my son does not want for himself? I can't speak for mom. You get what I'm saying? But I do know that for me, being in that situation, not knowing what I want, and with my mom having to pass while I'm making that decision of go to school or not, at that point, that was my motivation. At that point, that was everything that I needed to fuel myself to keep going to make that happen. I wasn't able to make that happen while you were here, but I did it in your name, right? Then it got to the point that secondary education. Hell no, I don't want to go back for my MSW. Y'all could have that. You get what I'm saying? But then I looked within. You said something very powerful. I'm more interested in motorcycles. That's what gives me life. That is a career. That is a business. That is ownership. At some point, maybe you and mom need to have that real difficult dynamic. I had that conversation at the age of 5. My mom sat me down. I don't know what's going to happen to you should something happen to me. I need you to pay attention. Whether you go to school, whether you make something of yourself, pay attention. Because I could tell you now, I don't know. And all I could tell you is pay attention. And so as you're going through your navigation of what you want, I tell my dad, and pardon me if this is harsh, and I apologize. I told my dad, at the end of the day, my G, you lived your life, bruh. You chose drugs, you chose gangbanging, you chose what you chose. I'm trying to change the narrative. My grandfather passed away with stocks in PG&E, with ownership not only in California but other states. I'm trying to pick that up, and I can't do that until you accept the fact that I am trying to change the narrative. And it may not be your route. It may not be what you want for me, but I know what I want for myself. I've seen the mistakes y'all made. I've seen the patterns that y'all come from. I don't want to repeat history. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So you say that, they come from where they come from, they sacrificed a lot. When are you gonna sacrifice? That's something that you and mom may have to have a real conversation. And who's to say? It may not be a credential school as far as like getting your BA or master's or something, but you can go to school for mechanics. You can go to school for motorcycles. You can build it from the ground up. That's still successful. That is still groundbreaking. That is still making a way, but I have to do my path. Because should something happen, God forbid, then what? Yeah. You gonna still be stuck with the question, am I fulfilling what mom wants? Or at this point, do I gotta do it in her legacy and her name?
And to add on to that a little bit, I wanna say, I think that you have to, I think one of the hardest parts for me and like stepping into my adulthood and my purpose was recognizing that my legacy is now. Like who I am and who I'm going to be and who I'm going to be described as and who my children will remember me as is right now. It's not happening later. We love to, especially, and I would say in the first 4 years out of high school, you're like, well, you're doing it. When you do it is right now. You are doing it. And so like that, keep in mind that ancestry and, and how we view our ancestors and how we view people who pass on, America will make you believe that it is very finite. You know what I mean? That it's like that when they're gone, they're gone. When they're here, and what you had is what you had.
Speak, Jordan.
But the reality of the matter is that our ancestors don't leave us. So if you lose your mom in the physical plane, you're going to get closer to her in the spiritual one. And in that, right, there's something that happens when you guys join in that way. That understanding that you're seeking from your mom is going to come. You just may not hear it. It's going to come because there was someone in your family before you, and there was someone in your family before your mom and before your great-great-grandparents who went through the same thing as you, who had to take the same stand. And there's an understanding that comes when we get into that ancestral plane. So even if it doesn't happen, even if there's never a point of understanding in life, there will be one. And you'll feel it.
One of Omega coachisms is some may not get it then, some may not get it now. And I'm Omega alumni. Eventually, some will. You get what I'm saying? And so you have to definitely take that with you.
I just don't want to live with like a regret, because speaking about like sacrifices, like a major point of where I'm making most of my decisions is based off the fact that my dad committed 20 years to the Navy, and he was gone for most of my life. And my mom went through a lot herself too, because my dad wasn't there, and she was an immigrant too. So it's just, I guess they're putting their experience and comparing it to mine, saying like I have it much easier, that I should be able to strive higher than they were.
They not in it.
And
It's a lot. I feel like it's a lot worse than it is. I think it's a lot worse now than it was then.
Yeah, and like
You know?
that's what I told him. I'm like, Mom, it's so much different now
Yeah.
than when you're 18. And like, I guess I admire like everything you've done and like your hardship and where you came from.
Oh, baby, it works every day.
And
Trust
Mom,
me, I have
it's
my
hard
moments.
too.
It is very hard.
Yeah.
when our parents were our age, rent was, my dad told me he had an apartment that was $600. I said, okay, Dad. Like now I'm like, all right, so you had to be making some crap. What were you making that year, Dad? He said, well, about that time I was making about $50,000. I said, Negro, I'm making what?
Right.
We're making a little less than that, Pops.
Right.
I want assistance. What are we talking about?
Right.
What are we talking about? Craziness.
Y'all are. I mean,
sound
y'all
so
are
old now.
dropping
Yeah.
some. Just, I'm sitting here
sound
teary eyed.
old. Yeah,
I saw
that's
Tati
ridiculous.
wiping some. I was wiping some tears
Yeah.
because we don't have to. We didn't have to say nothing. You know what I mean? And this is, I think, in our last, right before COVID hit, these were the type of sessions we were having, where I was
Yeah.
kind of stepped back and y'all were
Circles.
pouring into each other. And to me, this is education. And we've been doing this thing in this time together of kind of conflating the two, and we always do that. We do schooling and education, right? But they're not the same. They're not the same thing. You know, most of what feels icky in your body, that's schooling, and then a substantial amount of what felt empowering, that may have felt like it was on accident or external to that. That's what we're understanding as education, and the way that y'all just poured into what you thought you were just pouring into Angus, right, and healing parts of us. That we both got kids, right? That's what I want my child to be surrounded by. And we both, our kids are in forest schools right now. Because the two of us cannot imagine letting them, their spirits, experience what y'all had to survive. You know, we've said this is it's a different generation. Our generation is one of the first generations that will apologize to children. And so I'm saying I'm sorry what you had to survive in the name of education, and it was not. I'm sorry about the countless stories that we did not even tell today, because we all got them. I'm sorry for the adults, those of us who live in fear, and we project that fear onto y'all. I am deeply sorry about that. And, you know, there's a phrase of like, we are in this room, we are all holding a lot. And the kids are all right.
Yeah.
The kids are all right. What I'm hearing. And so I want y'all, and we're going to close out with this, and I want to kind of hear from everybody. This final question is, if based on what you are holding right now, what would your ideal educational space look like, and what would it offer? Not and try to do away with these other voices about what success looks like. What you are holding and your greatest needs that you have right now. What would your ideal educational space offer?
And you're talking about for like our younger selves, though.
Sure.
Okay. I think that nothing prepared me for what it is like to be a black man in this world. I think that, you know, like everything we experience as black boys is, we are seen as black men. And you would think that it conditions you and experiences, but not even my school experiences. I was always kind of seen as a troublesome kind of like, I was a lot all the time, and I wore it. But I think that, like, I had to step away from education after 6 years because being a black man in that space, in these spaces, the way that they treat the black boys evolves, and that's how they treat you too. And often, that just looks like disregard, and that looks like a discomfort, but yet a comfort at the same time to do things that you would never do with other people. And so I think that one thing that what learning would look like for me in that instance, it would just be holding me kind of honestly and making space for these difficult conversations where it's like, well, this is what this feels like and this is what's happening. And somebody just saying, so this is what that's probably going to feel like and this is what these situations are. Fill it out, Also, I wish that there would have been space, like in the conversation about ancestry that I just had, I wish that somebody would have just talked to me. I think that I viewed death and I viewed my people passing and I viewed colleagues passing. I viewed all these things as such a heavy and hard process. And I think that is, I like to shit on America for fun, but like, honestly, I think that is also an American thing where it's like, we speak of angels in the Bible. We speak of a lot, but we don't speak of ancestry. We don't speak about the people in your lineage that are making the way for you because they love you.
Yeah.
Because they also walked down that path and it was harder when they did it. And so now they're able to, right? I just wish that there was room because we all, I can say at least, lost people too young because that's what happens in the room. That's what happens. That is what happens for us. That's our experience. That's a black experience. I wish that there would have been talks around our ancestors, and not just in the way where it's like we were all kings and queens, like not the beautiful romanticized, resilient, what I mean, not like, but more so just like directly. Your people will pass on, and when they do, you should still speak to them. Mm-hmm. You should honor them. You know what I mean? Put out the snacks that they like. Do things that connect you with your ancestry because that's where you come from.
Come on, man. Mm-hmm. Angus, what you got?
I would rebuild school systems from the ground up. Just completely abolish it. School doesn't prepare you at all for life in general. Speaking about what Jordan said, providing like safe spaces to just talk about anything, everything, right? Like anything. Also to be able to build community, like a actual community in a sense where like everyone is included. And also like there isn't like a set curriculum to where there's one path. There's multiple paths. Like I would like it to be where all forms of education is appreciated. I think that I just think that I just want, how to explain this? I just want everything to be learned. I don't know, just everything. I would include everything. And just more talks about interpersonal like relationships. Like I feel like a lot of us don't discuss about trauma, how we've been brought up, and also how to figure ourselves out. We don't ask enough questions about, hey, like what do you want to do? Like, are you okay? Like something wrong? I don't ever hear that from a teacher. So I guess rewriting a new system where we talk about our feelings too would help a lot in our development.
Thank you. Z, what you thinking?
For myself, I mean, it's hard to say education didn't get me where I am. I just feel like it was given in a different way. I think that aligned with what my ideal space will be, of course, I feel like it will look like me. It will reflect me. People that's teaching it looks like the students that are in the space. I think that addressing what needs to be taught within these spaces, definitely a lot of social emotional learning. I think that when we begin, and Tiff, you introduced this topic to me, when we talk about these adverse childhood experiences, when is it early enough to start that healing process, providing a space for that process to start. I think that life skills definitely needs to be implemented. I think that if you take it back to our roots, when you talk about lineage, back in the day when my grandparents and my mother and family went to school, see, my father dropped out in middle school. My mom had some college. And so they talked about, I had wheel shop, I had auto shop, I had whatever. You get what I'm saying? These are all skills that can then not only be applied to life, but also be applied to some trade, even if you were to go to an educational institute to get that. So I think that understanding that process and understanding that this is really more of a need, financial literacy, life skills, learning how to cook for yourself, learning how to write a resume or a cover letter or just something outside of the structure that we have been taught for so long, is something that needs to change. And at some point we talked about how we navigate these spaces and, how do we create the change or be the change? We have to go through these systematic things to then see where can we change it. But it's contradicting because you have systems that stop it. So when it stops it, then comes partners. Then comes outside groups like myself coming into spaces. But why does it have to take for a community partner to come in to do that? Why can't you offer that as a teacher? Why can't it be offered in a curriculum? Who approves it? Why can't those people that approve it then reach out to the people that they are partnering with, or that, hey, we're a nonprofit organization, this and that. Nonprofit is cool, but nonprofit don't make no money unless you executive. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, when do we then begin to implement that? During school hours, not taking them out of class, not at lunch, not after school. When do we implement that as a class subject? So I think for me, mental health will be one. Therapy, a lot of out of the norm, because again, we can't tackle academics. I mean, you can, but a person has to understand it first. A person has to understand it first, but we cannot attack academics until we attack what's happening outside of the school. And so many people fail to realize that you want a student that probably been sleeping outside, that probably done got beat on, or that gotta go and dibble and dabble in the streets because their parents is active, or whatever the situation is. How do we attack that? And I think once we attack that, then you can get what it is that you're looking for in any aspect. Because the last thing I'm thinking is an English paper. No, I'm trying to figure out how I'm finna pay my rent, whatever the situation. Even at 32 years old, I was just going through something a few months ago. Well, not a few months ago, probably a month ago, financially. How am I gonna pay my rent? This shit just went up $2,000. How am I gonna buy my food? My job buying my food, So I think that's where we need to really change the narrative. But how do you do that within the systematic system?
Joseph.
So, you guys set it off. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Nah, I just went. Kind of did, but I appreciate all of y'all points because I agree with all three of y'all. I guess so I can sound a little different. I'm gonna add my little extra on there, but something to kind of feed off on one of the points you made about learning trades and stuff like that. Imagine everything y'all said, but the only other special thing I'd add in there is like trying to create a system where as the kids are progressing, you're starting to understand more and more what they like and what they gravitate towards, and what they're good at, what they like to be good at too. Right. So while as that system's there and you're watching them do that, you'll start accommodating to each individual need. Well, maybe of course there's gonna be more than individual.
Like a cohort.
Oh, y'all like this? Okay, boom, this is a group. No, we're all still gonna integrate, but in certain times, like y'all have y'all time to learn this and participate in this because I see this is what you like. This is what you're gonna be a part of. This might be your job, man. So creating a system to where those trades are like also life. You're learning those through your progression to school for life and everything else. And financial literacy is always a thing. It should definitely be included in schools from the jump. Because people already got a head start on us when it comes to that. Depending on what schools you go to, private schools got it. And yeah, just creating a special system that accommodates, that can navigate in ways to accommodate to you.
Candace, you want to answer that question?
I mean, I think probably what comes to my mind is a place where we are, free to practice community. I think that what I'm hearing are in this conversation, which has been so groundbreaking, is the ways that if we had village, right, what that would look like and how that could interrupt all these different things that we do out of fear. Fear comes from not feeling of just we're not having our needs met, or that we're afraid that our little ones won't. And I think that's valid. That's extremely valid. And I also think that, man, if we had ability to really work through, like, seeing this interaction between you all was wild. I don't know if I'm sitting about, there were supposed to be some students here today, and I wanted to, like, apologize for the different ways that I've done the same thing and been challenged in the same way. And, like, maybe part of why folks aren't here is because this didn't happen enough, right? And I think that there's, like, that coming up for me. I wish I had the practice of what to do when things break down and how to build community and villages that can maybe hold us, or also hold us when we need additional support, and that lean into our ability to move towards our sacred purpose. And it should be outside, to the extent that we can. And it shouldn't hurt us more than, we've been talking about this throughout these podcasts, like a rites of passage that we deserve, So this is a part of the medicine of the earth, is we get challenged. So I think some things stretch us, but it shouldn't be something that breaks us in ways that we're not deserving of, the kind of, like, opening, So that would be what I'm imagining as a possibility for education.
Tatiana, what you got?
It's gonna be a little different than what everybody else is saying, but I was speaking to you about it the last time I was at your house. But I feel like we're never really told it's okay to do nothing. Like, for me personally, I just feel like my whole life I've always had to, like, deal with the consequences of everybody else around me. I've never had a chance where I could just sit down and just be like, I'm cool. Like, I don't want to do nothing. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Just constantly always had to deal with something. And I think after my brother passed away, I sat down for, like, a cool couple months, and I honestly did nothing. Like, I sat there and I let everybody tell me how I need to be doing this, how I need to be doing that, how I need to be doing everything. And I just see a bunch of tired souls around me who honestly can't sit here and explain what's the sole purpose of their pain, but they can sit here and tell me all these other things that I need to do to work on mine. So honestly, if I built a school, there would be a space for you to do nothing.
To just be.
Yeah, a radical idea.
Yeah, and I think the naming of that, though, sometimes, even as you say, just nothing, existing, Jordan, to your point, is radical. Being able to sit in the stillness of your being is radical. That's a lot of times where epiphany comes from. That's a lot of times where connecting to your ancestors, to spirit realm, right? It's just being.
I think it's strategic. I think it's strategic that like, because I think there's a natural desire, especially coming out of high school, because for most of us, it's like this very kind of violent process. There is always a desire to sit. I really wanted a year to just figure it out, to just, like, I don't know what I want to do when I go to college. I have no idea. But depending on what school you go to, depending on what, they're like, we don't have that. We can't guarantee that you're gonna get it next year.
We don't have the nothing category.
We don't have a category for you to find yourself. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And what I think the combination of what y'all shared, I think a lot of people are like, well, to be a doctor, to be like, we come from healers. We come from people who don't have to go through the institutional structure to know how to heal themselves and others around them. We come from scientists who, what we have to understand, and sometimes we have the amnesia, is that the ability to do all these things that are now attached to going through school existed prior. And to your point, Joseph, around the such a brilliant point. It's incredibly ancestral. That is education, and that's mentorship. Is that in a lot of the communities that we come from, you have a mentor who watches you and absorbs and understands your genius. They observe you for a period of time. And then that is their role to guide you in your genius, right? So it's so powerful to hear that is in y'all.
Yeah.
Right? What you're saying, yes, it's radical and it seemingly is innovative, and it is ancestral. This is who we are. This is where we come from. So it's also inspiring to me to hear that. And so I keep saying the kids are all right, and that's not to say living, like, I have a friend that says life is going to keep lifing, That's not to say it's smooth.
Yeah.
But what y'all have shared today, that's why I keep saying the kids are all right. And if you are able to really, while the two of y'all are continuing to advocate for children and create space to understand the child, while you continue to take these huge risks to prioritize your health and your well-being, and while you use comedy to do the same thing, right? Is that y'all are transforming this landscape just by being and continuing to do that. So I'm grateful for y'all. Thank y'all for sitting with us and just, I would say, helping to be a part of the most monumental podcast ever recorded.
This was wild.
In the history of podcasts.
Yeah. And
I don't think you understand yet.
No. And I think that, like, to that point about y'all being all right, I think it's just another impetus that we're in need of healing as adults.
Yes.
And that this work is primarily something Aaron always is saying, like, this is the work of adults to heal.
Yes.
And as much as I've been blessed in this conversation, I'm so much more, I'm so excited that it was documented, because I know there's some really powerful and potent medicine here that will help us heal as adults who are also children who needed some of this memory to be re-engaged.
Yes.
Y'all have helped us.
Yes,
so
Lord.
thank you for that.
Thank y'all. Appreciate you.
Before we go, you talking about
course.
Aaron Nakai?
Yes.
This is the camera.
Hey, Aaron. One time I told you.
Make sure he sees this.
One time I told you that I was the best rapper in the Bay Area, and you laughed at me. And I want you to know.
Oh, no.
You are going to pay for that, my friend.
All right, we're good.
On that note, we out. It's a wrap.
Hey, y'all.
Love. We will embrace a apocalypse. We will embrace an unveiling that says that education is here to bring us life.